Okay, so welcome back to the Pilipinx-American Stories podcast. We are here to better understand the aspects of the Filipinx-American diaspora. We cover topics such as, but not limited to, history, community, and Filipinx-American culture. And I am your host, Alfredo. And this episode today, we have our guest, Rosanne. She is a fellow writer here in San Diego, and she is also the co-host of the Astrology Heauxs podcast, which will be linked or plugged in the description. So, Rosanne, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Most def. I know we were having the topic for today. We were having conversations like prior to this, and I felt like this was a very important topic to discuss, especially with this climate right now. So we're just gonna dive right into it. So the topic for today is understanding anti-blackness in the Filipinx community. So throughout like this episode, I am going to be referencing certain things about or referencing certain things about anti-blackness, and I'm going to be referencing different articles and like documents that I've come across just to break it down a little bit more and just to have a better understanding. So if we're to look at the Beyond Earth, Wind, and Fire document that's created by the Flow organization from Fordham University in the Bronx, and along with the hashtag Magandang Morenix article from Abby Passion on Medium, anti-blackness is defined as the personal, cultural, social, legal, and structural attack on black folks and blackness as a whole. And according to Beyond Earth, Wind, and Fire, colorism is a prejudice or discrimination, especially with a radical or ethnic group favoring people with lighter skin over those with darker skin. So, Roseanne, what is your take on all like this anti-blackness that we've been seeing?
I mean, definitely, I didn't know that there is it was that you could call it anti-blackness, but definitely the whole colorism thing. I didn't know how much they could fit under the same umbrella. But anyway, um, that is something that a lot of Filipino Americans hear throughout their lives is staying out of the sun and not really giving a medical information you could get skin cancer, but it automatically just jumps to you're gonna get darker. And I see it all the time. There's certain relatives who favor certain cousins of mine because their skin is lighter, or there's a definite favoritism towards anyone who looks more like European. I mean, look at Miss Universe, or Miss, is it Miss Universe? Yeah, Miss Universe. Most of the time, the Filipino women who win have European features. They never look like me, which has I have a flat nose, and I'm pretty dark.
And the other thing is like in terms of like media in the Philippines, like you see a lot of these like variety shows where there's a lot of like lighter skinned Filipinos in the spotlight. And I don't know, maybe like you could help me translate a little bit, but like the way they perpetuate like darker skinned Filipinos, they like show them as like very poor or like kind of
Oh
more of
my
a
gosh, or
like a comedic thing,
dumb.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, they're the poorer ones. Yeah, definitely, because that means you do all the dirty work while all the lighter skinned people are indoors, It's so sad. Even for skincare, you've seen it, papaya soap. I mean, I grew up with that in my bathroom up until a certain point, Um, but yeah, it's so sad how ingrained and embedded it is in every avenue of our culture. When it comes to you said media, for all the people who have leading roles, or the variety shows, they only have girls who are dancing to be light skinned. I've never really seen a darker skinned girl dance. um but yeah, it's really sad. And even I feel like it even goes past color, how much they just value Western culture. And they never, I feel like they always celebrate their own culture right after American culture. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's kind of just like you're glorifying something that's like foreign, where you're kind of just like you're essentially pushing your own like cultural identity to the side. Because I just wanted to bring this up. So on the Earth, Wind, or Beyond Earth, Wind, and Fire document, there was a phrase on here that was taken from Exodus Toward Egypt, written by who is the author for this? Elazar S. Fernandez, and what they quoted was, "White America represents what is good and beautiful, while the brown Philippines represents what they despise in themselves." And that
Oh my
usually
god.
goes into like colonial mentality and everything, and just I don't know, some kind of like hate towards like your own culture and everything.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Dude, like, I don't want to speak for your experience, but like, I have definitely heard from like people say, like, if any of my relatives get with like a white person, automatically they assume like their offspring is going to be like beautiful. And it's like just because that baby would be mestiza or mestizo and or
No, that's like
mestizx.
that's a thing. Like that straight up, that is a thing, and it's kind of sad to see that, because it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, so what about like the like that like full Filipino baby? Is like that baby not as beautiful as the
I
other one?
know. They can't even help it. It's like they didn't they like how can they control that? You know what I mean? Like we're just bound to look darker skinned and shorter with like a flat nose. I don't know. I don't know, it's just so sad. I but you know what gives me like hope at least is that it's starting with us. Really? I mean, I
Oh
don't
wait,
know,
your
like
thing cut off a
people
little
are
bit.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
I was going to say how it gives me hope that it's starting with our generation for us to be questioning and pushing out this colonial like narrative that we've all grown up around. Like I like how we're pushing and accepting of so many different ideas of what is beautiful, and like it gives me hope for the next generation, you know. I feel like I hope that their interpretation of beauty isn't so like linked to like superficial Western ideas, you know?
I think just like going off of that, like I mean, just yo, shout out to Asia Jackson for starting the whole like hashtag Magandang Morenix thing. I mean, like she's like this half for the people that don't know,
Wait, who is she?
she's a half black, half Filipina actress who's been like putting it down like for I don't know for like how long, but she's basically the one that started the whole like hashtag Magandang Morenix thing, meaning like, oh yeah, love your brown skin because it's just as beautiful as like skin as other people are perpetuating as like, yeah, it's
Oh,
like basically saying that, hey, it's okay to love your skin because it's brown. Don't shame it because it's like not as white as everyone else or whatever.
yeah,
But yeah, I think like our generation is starting to question like some of the traditional values a little bit more,
yeah.
and like saying that, okay, so where is this coming from? This is a lot of it is stemming from like colonization from the Spanish, a lot of colonization from the US, and just like essentially like glorifying those in like higher classes who look a lot like lighter than us, saying like, oh, I guess if we're lighter, then we'll probably be perceived as more royal or more likable by like the
Yeah.
population or whatever. But I mean,
I'm
how
so
else have you?
sorry.
Oh,
Have
wait, were
you
you gonna say?
seen that? Have you seen that meme of like, it's not a meme, but it was something that I had reposted a day ago or 2 days ago. It was like, just because white people didn't invent it doesn't mean that aliens did it. You know, like all like how like people start like questioning like the Great Wall of China or like the pyramids in South America or like in Egypt. Like you know, like that one show on History Channel, something aliens. Is it Ancient Aliens?
I think it's just called aliens.
I don't know. But yeah, how they like try to like reason with us and be like, the aliens invented this and this like monument or whatever, or like this pyramid, like it couldn't have been humans. Like, how are they so civilized and so smart? And it's like nobody questions like white people so much like that, you know? Like, I'm sorry, anyway.
No, but that's just
Because
like
like
going
we
on
thought of,
just going on the notion that like I don't know because like if you're looking back at history and everything and seeing how a lot of these like colonizers came to the Philippines or just like to all these like non-colonized like areas of land and everything, like a lot of people are like those natives are perpetuated as like uncivilized because they're like not Christianized or whatever, or they're not following like
oh my
European
god,
values.
yeah,
Like,
because we don't follow the word of God. Dude, imagine for all like how many Muslims would be in the Philippines, right? Right? It would have been, yeah, we would have been Muslim.
no, like
Yeah.
100%. And it's just like, okay, so who determines what's right and wrong? So what's like is someone's native way of doing things, is that like wrong just because it's not Christian or whatever?
Right. Ew. We should reject Christianity.
Lamau,
Every Filipino
100%.
person should.
But how else have you seen like how I mean besides the whole like colonizer thing and everything, but just like in modern day, how else have you seen like anti-blackness perpetuated in the Filipinx community? Because I see a lot of like more blatant like anti-blackness with just like some Filipinos that I've seen just straight up like demeaning people that are like darker, like straight up in their face,
No,
like they're
yeah.
just black people. Like I've seen some people like as soon as a black person is like moving past their car and everything, they just lock it, just
Yes. And
like
I
just
think
read that.
it's so stupid too, since like I don't, I think it was you who I was having this conversation with, like that whole like Asian, like the whole like model minority myth about Asians and like how we're like the good minority. That doesn't, that like that only covers East Asian people. Am I right? And like
'Cause, yeah,
it
I mean,
never
like we're
really like, sorry, like it never like talks about Southeast Asians or like Laos or like Cambodians or Filipinos or Vietnamese people. Like we are not as well off as like our East Asian folks, you know? And like I was making a point.
no 100% because that like that just goes into the whole thing of like the model minority and everything because that perpetuates Asian Americans or Asians in general as like
Yeah.
this group that's like, oh, this is the standard that you have to like live up to in order to succeed like a white person in America
Yeah.
and everything. But
And
like
like you know what's so stupid too is the fact that like who like all like I feel like most Southeast Asian American folks can like identify a lot closely with like black culture because do you know, because we're not so like well off and stuff, you know what I mean? Not saying like we're like the fucking same, because we are not the same. Like we are, our experience is nowhere like a black person's experience, you know. But like I think it just blows my mind how like minorities can just like feed, how we can just feed into like a narrative like that and think we're so much better off than like other folks, you know? Like
I think I can see what, wait, what were you gonna say?
sorry, no, you go.
Oh no, but I think it's like yeah, we do understand it a little bit. I mean, I don't think any of us will ever claim to be part of the black experience or like claim to be black in any way, shape, or form unless we have that in our blood. But it's like, I mean, there is a lot of like colorism that goes on in like the Asian American community or the Asian community in general. Like, dude, Southeast Asians are kind of like seen at times as like the dirty Asians and everything. And it's just like, dude, that's messed up.
The jungle Asians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, I think I have a better understanding of just like that whole perpetuation of colorism and but now that's like happening right now and it sucks because that's also happening in like the Filipinx American community, Filipinx community and everything with the whole like skin whitening thing and just like I've seen a lot of like I had to step away from Facebook a little bit just to get like my
What?
bearings in, but like I've seen like some people on there that were like same ethnicity as I am, just like kind of like demeaning like the black people that have like died due to like police violence or like racial violence or whatever. It's
Oh
just like,
my
oh, if
god.
like you had a job or whatever, like it probably wouldn't have happened. I'm just like, dude, that's that
Who
you're missing the
deserves?
point.
Yeah, I'm sorry, even if someone were homeless, that doesn't give them the right to be executed just cuz, that's I don't know. Like, even if someone did commit a crime, like no one really deserves to die like that or at all.
Because it's just like, okay, so if he did commit a crime, I'm like, uh, why don't you actually like treat him supposedly like more like supposedly like as fair as like a white person who committed a crime and just like take him to like the court or whatever? But no, like, dude, like, what's like? I didn't even know how long like that cop had his knee on like George Floyd until I saw Dave Chappelle's special and everything. I'm like, dude, 8 minutes, 46 seconds
Yeah.
to like kill a man, dude. Like what's wrong with it? And people are like okay with that kind of stuff in the community. I'm like, dude, that's wrong.
I know, or they're so focused. Or like maybe they'll say things like, "Oh, no, yeah, like they should be protesting, but like the looting and like the riots, like they're not productive." And I'm like, they're not productive like if it's white people, doing it, but like if a black person, I'm sorry, I just like how they just focus so much on like property damage. Like if you are behind the Black Lives Matter protest, like just stop there. Like just don't say anything else after that, because anything else after that usually isn't something you should be saying out loud.
It's like I understand the whole like property damage thing because I know some social or some smaller businesses cannot afford those loans or whatever, but it's like I mean, you kind of have to read between the lines and everything. Like, why is this happening? Because this isn't the first time like this has happened in like the U.S. Like before this was like the whole Trayvon Martin thing, and then like in the '90s it was Rodney King, and like
Yeah,
before that, like the whole civil rights movement and everything with
yeah,
like Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and then if you go even further back to like I don't remember the exact year or like century or whatever, but the whole Nat Turner thing, I'm like, dude, the guy was killed and everything. So like, of course, people are gonna be mad, but like you have to like, it's not as like simple as people are making it. It's like there's something behind this. Yes, I don't condone the whole like destruction of businesses and everything. I kind of wish there was like a different way, but like that's kind of like what happens when like you've been shut down for so long and people are not listening. But
yeah, yeah.
it
Like
sucks.
I know, like how else are they supposed to get attention, since like people seem to value property so much more than the lives of like those who are innocently killed by cops. Like, who wouldn't want to burn down a Target to get someone's attention? Like I probably would. Don't at me. Yeah, I probably would.
But I also get it too. Like I don't know. There's so many lines that have to be like read because I know that I don't really support Walmart or Target as much just because of like how they treat their workers and like staff and everything. But there's also some accessibility that comes with Walmart and Target. Like some of the cheaper made goods are like there to give some access to like poor communities. But it's like I don't know. It's not as simple as people are making it. Is what I'm trying to like come across. But like yeah, I
Yeah.
really wish there was a better way to like go about it. But I think with just the conversations we're having like a better understanding of like, hey, this is why it's important to address like what's going on like in this time, especially with like the Filipinx-American community and everything. Like I know some of us haven't had the chance to speak on anti-blackness with our families and friends, but I feel like some of us now are in this in these moments where we're actually talking about it a little bit more.
Yeah, I have had my own. Have you talked to your family? Like, I've talked to my family like loads and loads of times, and I think just now, like someone really close to me is starting to see, like, I think what people have most, like most of the problem is like the phrase of Black Lives Matter. Like they feel like it's so like attention seeking, you know what I mean? And like that whole like maarte mentality, you know what I mean? And like I think like I really don't know how I would like advise anyone talking to their families because it's not an easy thing and it's exhausting, but it's not as exhausting as having to worry about like not getting shot for walking down a street, you know? But like calling somebody in more than like calling them out, it's so much easier said than done. Because I know I don't really follow this advice, but like talking in a calm, ew, I hate saying calm. Cause like I hate telling somebody to like calm down, but like you know what I mean? Just like talking in like a tone where you're not really trying to like make somebody, because I feel like the moment that somebody feels like shut out and the moment that they feel stupid, that's they're less inclined to like really read up on it, on the movement, and try to figure out like what it stands for. You know what I mean? Like have you ever like met a person where like they say something but it's out of like their genuine, like they just didn't know, and like they make a mistake and then they start to feel stupid and they like never want to like join in on the conversation anymore. Like I feel like that's like not the approach to do it. And at the same time anyone should just like educate themselves, but like, and that's, I think that's another thing too, like the more you talk to them, or the more that you talk to people and like your family or your friends, um like they can't really do anything until they decide to want to like relearn or unlearn some things. You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah, I
sorry,
mean,
like
like that whole thing needs to be a little bit more natural for it to happen. Like, I wish, like, having some of those conversations. Like, personally, like, I've had some of those conversations with friends. Like, the only person in my family that I actually wasn't even the one that brought it up. My mom was the one that brought it up and everything, and she was like, she's very understanding of like everything that's going on and everything. Because like, yeah, dude, this stuff has been happening for years, and like, I'm happy that my mom is like able to understand. And same thing with my friends and other like family circles of just like friends that are willing to talk about this. Like it's so important to just like get this conversation out. But in terms of speaking with someone who doesn't really understand, that's hard to navigate. And there's no, or at least I don't believe there's like one universal way of speaking with someone. Because like,
yeah.
yeah, everyone has different ways of like getting their point across, getting their communication like down and everything. And it sucks for someone that may have. I mean, luckily, I've had conversations with people who have like opposite views as me, but they've always been civil at the end of the day, and we were just like we were able to understand like both the points that we came across. But when you're kind of dealing with someone who's kind of just like lost in the sauce and they only see it from their point of view, it's a lot harder to keep that calmness because like you kind of just want to fight that person.
Yeah, and I think it's so easy to want to be defensive like that and to like not, and like I think it's important for everyone to feel like what they're saying is important and not being like I would hate if someone said like told me, or someone told me like, hey, like what you believe in is like stupid and wrong. Like I'd be like, no, it's not, you know? Like of course I would defend myself, but like yeah, I think it's important to just call a person in rather than call them out, and really try and see where like their biases come from and point it out in a way that is constructive to them. But yeah.
One thing that like I still try to carry it to this day, but sometimes I'm personally guilty of not carrying it as much as I should have, just because like there have been moments where I have gotten angry and I'm like I want to take accountability for that. But like a rule that I have for like the organizations that I work with is, well, I mean, this is a guideline that we have for our students and whoever we're like presenting workshops to. It's basically like saying don't yuck my yum. So basically, if say I don't know, there's a band that you like or whatever, or a group that you like, I shouldn't shut that down because like what you like is valid to you, but it may not be valid to me or whatever. But it's still like valid to you at the end of the day. Same thing going like vice versa. And I think
Oh,
having those discussions in that kind of like format in a way that's more active listening and just better understanding could be a little bit more healthy in a way. And I'm personally still trying to navigate that because like the whole anti-blackness thing, BLM movement is very touchy in the sense because I know there are people that will like outright disagree with it, and it's difficult. And I'm still trying to find ways around it to better communicate with the people I'm around.
you know what sucks is like people who are just like so unwilling to have a discussion and they just like want to have an argument. You know those people like they're just like they just want to argue at the end of the day. Like they're not really trying to have like a constructive discussion on like the topic.
And I think once like you're getting into that kind of stuff, like it's draining, and that's like one of those battles that I'm not even trying to fight because I know that I'm not going to be able to get through you if or get to you if I'm like still speaking the same way I'm speaking, and if you're speaking the same way that you're speaking, and we just don't have any like common ground to like have a legitimate conversation and everything, and that's it's frustrating.
Yeah. No, yeah. It's frustrating, but like I think it's just like I mean, I don't know, like not speak up when someone says something wrong, but like I think it's also a parent who like is willing to have the conversation and see your point of view. You know what I mean? Like I think just like pick it, not like pick and choose when to like have a talk with somebody, but like there comes to like there comes a certain point where you can tell that they're just like unwilling to learn. Whatever, I already said that, but like whatever. Yeah.
No, but that's like reiterating that because that is such a big thing because I don't know, with like how education systems are, like we're kind of, I don't know, framed into or like programmed to accept knowledge as it is rather than having like discussions and questioning it. So it's like we're never given like that kind of chance to like question stuff like anti-blackness in like the Filipinx community. Sometimes like there are people that are just accepting of like a whole, oh yeah, it's okay to be like a lighter skinned like Filipino or whatever because it'll like give you prosperity rather than thinking like, okay, so how did this even come about and why are like darker skin like Filipinos being discriminated, or same thing with
Yeah.
the whole US thing of like, so why is it more, I don't know, desirable to be someone that's a white, like, and getting like the skin whitening things rather than someone that's black? Like, how, why were we taught that in school? Why were we taught that like through education systems and everything? Like, I think like just going back to like our whole generation and everything, I think we're getting to that point where we're questioning everything now rather than taking things at face value.
Yeah. And hopefully that always stays with us. You know, I hope that like 10 years from now, if like we like learn something new, that like we're so willing to like accept it and like let go of like old habits. I think that's like my biggest thing for people right now is like just like humble yourself and don't center yourself around like this issue because this issue isn't about you. You know, like no one's like just like be better. That's it.
Because it's like at the end of the day, it's a black movement. It was created for black people by black people just to show that hey, black lives do matter, and that hasn't been the narrative for like I don't know since the conception of this country and everything, and that needs to change. So like we can't be like those people that are just like stepping in, like taking the spotlight, because that's at the end of the day, it's not ours, because we're not in
Yeah.
any way, shape, or form black. We've never experienced the black experience. We've never like been black in any way, shape, or form. So I think I might have said that already, but like again, it's not ours to be in the spotlight and everything. But
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things is I think just having conversations like this, because I've been trying to get more into like these conversations with friends and family and everything, and they've been helping a lot just for because it's felt very like decolonizing in a sense, because I'm not like thinking the same way I used to. I feel like I've personally been growing and everything just
Hell yeah,
from these
decolonize
conversations.
your mind. Love that.
But I mean, just like going on that, I feel like I don't know, like it's difficult having those conversations with family and friends, especially when especially if you're not comfortable doing that, and if your friends are just not having those conversations in general and they're kind of just like brushing it off. But I don't know, I feel like why do you think it's important to have those like conversations? I know we talked about that again, but I feel like that needs to be brought up once more.
Um, I think, again, like it's not our responsibility to like have somebody care to like teach somebody to like care about other people because like just read a book or something. Like you should just be like a better person. Um, I think it's important to have these conversations, especially with our parents, because like they are like new to like I'm sorry if you hear my dogs. They're new to like the whole anti-blackness and like they're new in the idea that like how much they can be contributing to it and just be so unaware. You know what I mean? Like I think it's important. Like a few weeks ago, my sister and I were trying to have a conversation with my mom about like like you used to tell us or like you used to like tell like certain children that like they're dark and like but like they're pretty for like a dark person, and like she just got like so defensive and it's like no, like don't be defensive, just like know that like it wasn't your intention, but that is how like it came across to us and like that is what can like add to anti-blackness culture in like our community and how much like that like needs to be changed and just you know um like I think at one point like my mom will stop being defensive and would be willing to like have a conversation about that. um yeah, I think they're like just really new to the idea of like how much they can be like contributing to it. Like I feel like just because I feel like they have like I feel like they feel like just because I don't say the N word or just because like I am not like blatantly racist towards black people, like I'm like in the clear and it's like no, it's like so much more than that. It's like what you say to your kids or what you say to like your other like your other relatives. But yeah, that's why I think it's important to just like bring awareness to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because that whole like aspect of just like saying those kind of things is unfortunately programmed in some people, and I don't know. I feel like it's just a result of just like everything. Like you even touched upon like some of the stuff that was in the Beyond Earth, Wind, and Fire document. Like
Oh really?
I, yeah, you like examples of anti-blackness. I'm just gonna like touch upon this again, but it's like, hey, you don't act black. You're the whitest black person I know. And there was another one where it was saying you're lucky to be black. It must be so easy to get into college, and it's just kind of like
Oh my god.
that's a whole thing. But I feel like some people don't understand that racism goes beyond just saying like racial slurs or whatever, or being like blatant and everything. Like a lot
Yeah.
of this is political, a lot of this is like systematic. Like this is ingrained just like in our own personal program and everything, just because of how like other people were brought up, and it's just it's hard because it's like you're essentially. I feel like it's difficult because I feel like it's difficult and important because you kind of have to dismantle yourself and unlearn. But it's like, yeah, honestly, like I think another reason why it's important is because you're kind of doing it to become a better person at the same time. Like instead of just, I know it's important to like address the whole like humanitarian issue. I'm like, yo, black people should not be dying because of this. Like things have to change or whatever, and we have to also check our anti-blackness. But I feel like by doing that, we also become like better human beings because we have a better, I don't know, we have a better like value on what life is like and how it needs to be preserved and everything. And I don't know,
Right.
that's one of the things I'm thinking of in terms of like why it's so important to have those conversations. But again, it's a difficult road ahead. It's not gonna happen like overnight. Like we're still gonna be facing the
Definitely.
challenges.
Yeah. I wish it were that easy, but it's gonna be a lot of work. It's gonna be a lot more like discussions to be like made with relatives, but yeah.
I think that's like the own person, like you touching upon that kind of just like goes on the whole advice section for this episode. Like how should other people start these conversations with family and friends? I think just, I don't know, trying to find a way to meet where they are and then just like taking it step by step and understanding that it is a long road ahead and it's not going to be something that's done overnight. Like I honestly I wish it was like an overnight thing so we could just like get it over with and start like making some kind of progress, but like progress is slow.
Yeah. But progress can be made. I just am not thankful for the pandemic. I'm just thankful for the time that like we have had, and I feel like that's what really blew up the whole BLM thing this time around, because like everyone's like stuck to their phone, and like stuck to the news. Like no one can really be turned away from that. We all had to like, you know what I mean?
It's
Like
kind of like a blessing in disguise in some kind of way.
yeah. Although I'm not thankful for all the people who have died, because that's like the whole government's fault. But that's a different discussion for a different fucking day.
Oh, that could be, yeah, that's definitely a different episode, but we'll just stick to that right now. But the whole thing with like, yeah, it's gonna be a difficult thing to go moving on, but it has to be done, and that's all I really got to say on that. Was there anything else you wanted to add in terms of like the advice, like how should we start these conversations, everything?
Oh my god, like I'm like the worst because I get so heated, as I like had said earlier. But like I think just making sure that you feel that you're including that person in the conversation, and like challenge them without making them feel like they're being stupid, because it really isn't our responsibility to like tell people to care, but at the same time like you can be like someone's like jumping board to go off of, into like a sea of like information.
Ooh, I love that little like metaphor and everything. That's like, no, honestly, I really like that metaphor because it's like you're essentially like, I don't know, like one part of the conversation, even if like the outcome didn't happen like that day or that night or whatever. It's like it's a start and it's something.
Yeah, yeah. What a good note to like end this episode on.
With that being said, are there any upcoming projects or like shout outs you want to do before the
Oh
episode
my
ends?
god. Well, you mentioned the podcast that I share with my lovely co-host Lauren Cruz, who I love very much. Um, she and I, have both talked about recording episodes for Astrology Heauxs, but like we just feel like it just really isn't the time right now. Um, but yeah, but who knows? I just would rather spend my time doing something else. Oh, not like I don't love the podcast, because I do. It's just like I just feel like it's just not the time or place right now. You know what I mean? But anyway, yeah, that's it. But thank you.
Yo,
If you guys give us a follow, like we would love it, and we will hop back into the swing of things once.
yo, you heard that? Astrology
Yeah.
hose on Spotify. Do you have any other platforms or is it just Spotify?
Lib sign, I think. I think that's it. No. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're not on like Apple or anything. But yeah, I think that's all our platforms. We also have an Instagram at Astrology Heauxs, Heauxs spelled Heauxs. I never get to say that. Lauren says that all the time. Um, yeah, we're on Instagram. I think Astro Hose is like our Twitter, but no one uses our Twitter, so don't even bother.
Just give them a follow
Uh,
anyway. Just get that Twitter campaign.
but yeah, okay, yeah, that's it. Thank you for having me on
Thank you so
your.
much for taking the time out of this. And y'all heard it. Thank y'all for listening to the both of us. Go make sure to follow the Astrology Hose to see what projects they got going on. They got mad episodes on Spotify, so give yourself some time to like binge listen to all their stuff. They say like a lot of good things on there. So thank y'all for taking the time to listen to this episode, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Bye.